The Depth to Delve Deep by Rote Writer. Chapter 51 Belfast. Rote reminisces while on the bus back to Belfast. His thoughts take him back to the bar he tends before ever believing, let alone leaving, for a flight overseas. Rote leaves the bar back in his hometown to write his book. He finishes his book just when a welcome windfall allows him to travel overseas for a week. Not long after his first flight to London, he returns to tend bar. While tending bar, he fills up on all the Irish clientele's knowledge of places he hopes to see if he ever gets the chance to fly overseas again. One patron, an old-timer, says something in regards to doing something by rote. Rote asks him what the word rote means. He hears it, it hits him like a musical note. It lets him know that anything you can do without thinking, like tying your shoelace, you do by rote. Later, rote learns the word rote also means a musical instrument, like the lute or pan flute. Rote thinks of the pagan god Pan. At the time he tends bar, he hears how St. Patrick is portrayed like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, ensnaring all the snakes out of Ireland by playing the pan flute, the snakes being Celtic curls, druids. It's during all of this talk of Ireland when a regular with dual citizenship with Ireland, whom Rote serves daily, says to him, "You'll like Belfast, Dublin." "Not so much." Oddly, it holds true, for the first impression of Belfast is a grand one. He barely steps off the bus at the depot in Belfast when a man, upon seeing him, comes right up to Rote and offers him a lift. And before Rote can even answer, hauls his two blue bulging bags into the back of his car. Though the cordial chap is thrown somewhat, caught off guard by their collective, respective dead weight. Rote wonders if he's a taxi driver. There's no sign of his car being commissioned as one. Upon hearing his hostile quest, the friendly fellow suggests one he knows to be fine. He lets Rote know that not everyone in Belfast is bad. Rote welcomes this warm reception. He's chauffeured to the nearest and perhaps safest hostel. It's not far from the most bombed hotel in Europe. The Europa Hotel has been bombed 33 times by the IRA. On the way into Sandy Row, Rote bypasses a building. One side is a mural painted with a baby blue background, brandishing bold words. "You are now entering loyalist Sandy Row heartland of South Belfast. Ulster freedom fighters. Qui sebarit bit." There are two blood-red hands clenched in fists on the top half, balaclava-clad soldier holding a rifle, and two open, blood-red hands at the bottom. There is no doubt in his mind he's entering a pro-paramilitary UDA, UFF, and UVF Protestant part of town. Upon arriving at Vagabond's hostel, Rote thanks the fellow for the free and completely unexpected act of kindness. Ah, strangers. Inside a very clean and friendly hostel, he's assigned a room. Rote comes back and begins chatting with the manager of the hostel, mainly about the murals he's just seen on his way in. Rote asks where he can walk the next day to see the heavily concentrated areas of sectarianism, known to have garish galleries of hauntingly harsh murals painted on every other building in the area. The manager pulls out a map and shows him the two areas padded with paddy and proddy, one known as the Shankill Road area, a Protestant paramilitary zone with the Ulster Defence Association with their Ulster freedom fighters and the older Ulster volunteer force floating around. The other sectarian section is known as the Falls Road area. It's a Catholic paramilitary zone. The Irish Republican Army are there, armed and dangerous. He asks the manager, how safe is it to just walk about the two areas? In turn, he replies, "Just keep to yourself, and you should be all right. And oh yeah, avoid defining yourself religiously or politically." That night, after trying to wash the stains pertaining to his pants from the bog, he walks into the communal part of the hostel. He uses the internet to email friends and family, letting them know where he is now on his ongoing adventure. The following morning, unarmed in army pants and black cap, He walks through downtown Belfast. He leaves the safety of Sandy Row wondering if the history held in this part of Belfast is any better than the parts his own path to see. He continues along before heading over the overpass leading into the sectarian suburbs of Shankill and Falls Road area. He's already decided to do a loop by entering one area and at the end of it come out. Then if he can, cross over in between the two sectarian sections into the other section and back through the opposite one. When done, he conjures coming through a figure eight or infinity formation or sign, like a destined design. He decides on Shankill Road area first. What a world he's suddenly, surreally, and surely submerged in. He's never sensed such surrealism in his life. He's completely captured by the effects of the endless murals. They not only dominate every brick wall building, but also impose implied images to impress upon any with woe should someone stray their way. Rote does that day. He sees that every single one of the murals has an angry tone enhanced graphically with intent, all aimed with an overtly violent overture or theme to them. The murals Rote sees in the Shankill Road that afternoon are amplified in anger. Paramilitary figures clad in black with matching balaclavas, not to mention a huge blood-stained, sinister left hand held high, palm-wise, as a bitter blazon, a blood-feud emblazoned in a six-pointed star. Some of the murals conjure caution with condemnation for the IRA, with some references to murder and mayhem. Each section of that sectarian ghetto grotto has some significant motto and message that Protestant paramilitary groups are trying to convey, always proudly showing their wares and their tag tears, acrimoniously attached acronyms, UDA, UFF, or UVF, all fronting fierceness. Rote in wonder, though wary, continues to walk along from one section of the Protestant projects to another, all lined up in rows and adjoined in alcoves. It's where Rote's absolutely mesmerized by the iconography of the sociodrama unfolding by the minute. The murals market murder, no doubt. Rote can't but emphasize with the effect the murals must have on the children growing up in these noose-necked neighborhood hoods. He imagines what an awful effect these powerful images will have on young, impressionable minds, where they'll surely internalize the strife with a solemn sense inside. No wonder the troubles continue with environments like this. As far as Rote can see, the murals continually perpetuate the hate, division, and separateness these sectarian suburbs feel. Meanwhile, Rote meanders his way mindlessly into the mouth of the beast of Belfast. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Rote is suddenly stunned, shocked, and startled upon hearing a growl and German shepherds start to bark. It harkens the neighborhood. A borough of Belfast, seemingly utterly and unwholly uninhabited, to that point is now awake, wide awake. Boy, does he take the wrong turn this time, right into the bowels of Belfast. This road brandishes banners with the highest concentration of murals. The edge of town is ripe with rage, mired in ire. He feels that knowing, that faint feeling stemming from the nape of his neck, where all his hair is standing straight up in salute. But then again, so do the hairs on the back of the German shepherd. Yikes! A bristling mane, vibrating with canine verbosity, distemper, amplified in each bristle and bark. When people start to open their doors to see about the ruckus, Rote walks on the razor's edge. Without looking left or right, he walks with great reserve through the valley of death. He comes to the end of the row, passing through a Belfast booby trap. Back onto Shankill Road and down around, he follows the street with strained steps, restraining from running. He walks on without looking back, nor left or right. Peripherally, he marvels at the murals that continue to accentuate his adventure along the way. More murals line the buildings all the way down the main Shankill Road. But the road is running out. Rote wants to find a way to cross over sectarian suburbia, and he doesn't know how. He thinks there must be a passageway through, and it ought to be traveled with more care. The area that lies in between the two areas smells like some incendiary device hasn't long ago burned. burned out buildings, not to mention the bombed out ones providing the bombed out ones providing the Great Divide smell like they look burnt. The walls reach great heights with rolling barbed wire ridging them. It sends a singular message of how bad things have been and still can be. The graffiti in the area is something like a spectrum. The closer Rote gets to the Catholic side, the tone and colors change, though the message remains the same, full of hate and revenge. Not even rats would dare to live in that area. They know the smell of smoke and the feel of fire of an angry ire. Rote walks along, hoping a way will eventually get him through to the other mural moiety. Meanwhile, he notices a car slowly passing, with someone suspiciously surveying him while talking on a mobile phone. He keeps on going, but Rote senses he's the topic of the conversation. He makes a full loop through no man's land. He comes to the military barricade that, in an instant, can bar the two communities from each other. And the violence, as it usually does, erupts. Fortunately, it has yet to start that day. Rote, like flipping a coin, walks through the guarded gateway from the Protestant main into the Catholic domain. While walking down Falls Road, Rote feels like a contemplative critic mulling over the murals. Again, he's taken by the nasty nature nurtured. Many men clad in black with balaclavas, all pointing some firearm with an equally violent intent. Some of the murals give a chronology of all the wrongs the British pro-Protestant side has done to them, forever memorializing prominent community members. Meanwhile, Rote steps into an outdoor shrine in honor of some of the fallen comrades in battle. He feels a bit sad. He realizes the constant reminders on both sides of what the other has done. The situation seemingly will remain a sectarian stalemate. And so, Hamachain Fain, the soldier's song. Soldiers we, whose lives are pledged to Ireland. Some have come from a land beyond the wave, sworn to be free. No more our ancient Ireland shall shelter the despot or the slave. Tonight we man the Berna Beowgill. In Erden's cause come woe of wheel. Mid cannon roar and rifles peal. We'll chant a shoulder song. Bobby Sands has the most prominent hero. He's a British member of Parliament for Fermanagh and South Tyrone when he dies. It's after a 66-day hunger strike in Maze prison, along with 9 other prisoners, protesting being labeled as terrorists instead of political prisoners. Rote makes note of something written on it. Our revenge will be the laughter of our children. Still on Falls Road, it begins to rain as Rote goes with heat up to a giant mural, looming larger than life of an IRA soldier poised to attack. Rote hermetically holds himself against the wall, firmly pressed to avoid the rain now turned into hail. With his back up against the wall, he sees the same car earlier seen on the other side of the Great Divide. He comes down the road. The driver spots him. He sees the man talk tersely on the mobile phone while speeding away. With him away, Rote sees across the alley. In no time, 3 or 4 fellows quickly step out of what seems like a secret location. They quickly get into their car and proceed to follow the car that just passed by. Right, thinks Rote. As the rain lets up, it leaves the loom of doom behind. He heads back to the city center of Belfast, forever changed by the images seen and sensed within those 2 sectarian communities. Back in the city center, Rote walks around a bit, checking out this and that, before the beholden by Belfast City Hall, the domain of Donegal Square. He sits on a bench and rolls a smoke after eating some bread sparingly, stretching his food and whatever amount of money he has left as far as he can. He really doesn't know how much he has left to spare. He hasn't bothered to work out the exchange rate from pounds to euros, let alone the charge for each blind transaction from the bank machines in Dublin and now in Belfast. At this point, though, it doesn't matter, for he's seen everything he ever hoped for and then some, with his sometimes surreal sojourn. Over the ever-welcoming public bench, he heads back to the hostel, planning to take the prepaid return ferry and coach back to Edinburgh the following morning. That night at the hostel, Rote meets a traveling Texan who works unsuccessfully for the Democratic ticket in Texas, Bush territory. The two get along well and decide to accompany one another on into Edinburgh. They are both heading there the following morning. Meanwhile, at the hostel, they talk about their travels and what's been seen to date, each one explaining their own means and methods in each locale. While talking, they can hear from their hostel window what sounds like the sash my father wore, amidst a marching band beating the Lambeck drum. They both look out. It's a Protestant marching band, protesting their curb march through Catholic neighborhoods, ordered by the Parliament and policed by the Constabulary. One of the many in a long marching season all over Northern Ireland that ends every year at the Apprentice Day Parade on July the 12th. As the song says, they all wear the orange sashes, adorning the Orangemen, regally honoring William of Orange, a Dutchman. Rote earlier walks by the muted marching band on the way back from his sectarian stroll. And when he does, he notices the hate in the teenager band member's eyes, a fear-filled female no less. It's all too telling how pumped up and proud the teens are, and will remain with the constant reminders resounding, not only in their marching, but ricocheting with real-life lost strife, aye, art imitating life. After the protest passes, Rote and his roommate rest, only to wake up the next morning fresh for the trek back with their collective bags to the coach. Rote notices his new friend's backpack on the way to the coach the following morning, so nicely packed and carried comfortable on his back. And there's Rote with his two blue ball breakers, likened to lead-filled balloons in tow, low to the ground. His back bends. By the time they get to the coach station in Belfast, Rote's arms are weary, weakened with the weight of it all. While we're sitting in the station, the two talk a bit more. They wait for the coach that'll take them to the ferry terminal to arrive. They take time outs while the other stays and watches their respective bags. The coach comes. Now on board a slow ferry to Strainer, the two sway over the Mull of Galloway, Scotland's southernmost point, a peninsular promontory. Meanwhile, Rote's fickle with the fact that the fast ferry is somewhere else than where they stand. Leaves him a bit miffed, especially after mentioning to his new friend, in fine fashion, all about the state-of-the-art ferry that will bring them across. Now on board a ship surely old in the 70s, they can only see how the weather is frightful to the point where no one is allowed out on deck. By this time, the two are too tired and talked out. Together, they go to a partitioned part of the ferry playing a movie. Meanwhile, many people are present. The ferry has twice its capacity due to the other forlorn ferry missing in action, caused by the stormy weather. The movie is about a knight errant who wins the woman with his chivalry. Unfortunately, there are problems with the projector. Mix that with a fellow opening and closing the blinds starboard side, completely oblivious to the dismay of the overcrowded section. Well, it makes for a nightmare, migraine. Thankfully, the movie is over, and more so, the ferry is fast approaching the terminal. The two gather their bags and wait in line with everyone else to be coached back to Glasgow and onwards to Edinburgh. They arrive in Edinburgh later that night. The two wish each other well while Rote points his new friend in direction of the many hostels in Edinburgh. With his two tagged blue bags breaking his back, he heads to the convent, not sure if they'll let him back in, let alone if his bed is still available. He departs under dubious distinction.